What's going on, guys? Jay Curtis Strickland here. You're now watching Tea and Fuckery. Before we get started, if you could do me a little favor, click on that subscribe button, click on the little bell for notifications, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Today in the house, we have Mr. David Bakker of the I Did This Instead of Killing Myself podcast, which can be, you can watch it on YouTube or anywhere podcasts can be found, Apple, Google, Spotify. And you're also a comedian in Greenville, South Carolina. David, what's up, man?
Yes, sir, dude. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. It's glad to finally connect. I heard about you through Adam Schulte because he posted the link to your podcast, and I was like, that's a really clever name for a podcast. Like it's bleak enough and it's grim enough to where I would be interested in something like that. But simultaneously, it's not bleak and grim.
Yeah, well, dude, I appreciate the compliment, and I want to compliment you. Like, okay, your opener, way better
Oh.
than mine. Yeah, reminding people
Eh,
to subscribe and share. What a concept!
but see,
I
see
should
to
do that.
me,
I don't do it.
but to
I
me, that's like irritating YouTuber, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that unless people actually did it. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's partly part of the name, the background of the name is I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't think a lot of people do when they first start out at something. So that name is like, I did this instead of killing myself. It's like, this is my podunk hobby. There's literally nothing else I could have done with my time besides end it all. So, well, hey, here's a podcast we started during a pandemic. And
No, I mean, and that's
how,
great, because it's like, you know, I know that sometimes in the realm of entertainment and performers, mental trauma or stress can kind of get the best of us, and there's many a talented people that have decided to prematurely end themselves instead
it's
of
true.
instead of finding an outlet or doing something uh to either better themselves or humanity. And
Yep.
so I give props to anybody that can kind of just get up during the day and be like, you know what, things aren't perfect, I'm not perfect, but here we go. So
Yeah, give yourself props too for what you got going on and everything. I mean, I have a lot of respect for anybody who's put themselves out there in any form, artistically or content creation wise, because it's a trip, dude. The first time you put something out there that even your immediate followers and friends and family can see, you feel awkward. If you're like, oh God, what am I doing?
yeah,
But
right. And
I,
then you
I
can kind
find
of go back to it though, the glory of doing like YouTube and podcasts. Though you can kind of go back and see like, okay, where you were to where you are now,
sure.
and I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I've made like vast improvement from where I was to where I am now, and that's all one can really ask for, right?
100%. There's actually a quote that I really like, and I'm pretty sure you're a JP guy, right? Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah.
You follow his stuff. Yeah. Well, one of my favorite lines he has is "The fool is the precursor to the savior," which basically that's sort of I think that's Carl Jung's kind of his whole the archetype stuff. Like there's the wise king. There's all these famous archetypes, but that one's a big one because the fool is the precursor to the savior, meaning you begin kind of like a fool, you begin not knowing anything, and then you gradually learn more, and then eventually there's some redemption in that. So that's I think I on the podcast I always ask what your biggest regret is to my guests, and
Hmm.
a lot of them don't have a ton of regrets, but the regrets that seem to come up are not doing something,
Well, that's a good
not
segue
trying
then. So
something.
what's your biggest regret?
My biggest regret is not starting stand-up comedy sooner. I love stand-up comedy, and we don't have to talk a ton about that, but that's
No, here's the thing with this show. I always wanted it to be like a culturally based podcast. Of course, I have political leanings and you do, and
yeah,
I think it kind of helps that we're under the same ideological frame as far as that's concerned. But, if we don't always agree on things, there's other things to talk about. That's always kind of how I feel just life should go, like
Sure.
that. There's plenty of my friends that are on the complete opposite end of the political spectrum, but like, hey, let's talk about Star Trek or,
Sure.
whatever, with me and Adam disagree on a lot. So I think
Yeah.
that's what's really, kind of great about doing
Yeah. He's
stuff
more of
like
a
this.
union guy, isn't he? He's a
He's very union, and I'm kind of
pro-worker, which I can sympathize. I mean,
sure. I'm definitely on the fence about that because I've known. I mean, I've worked for some organizations to where it's been pretty exploitative, and I know there are organizations that are out there that are like that. Conversely, though, like this is we live in the kind of country to where you can just go and do whatever you want whenever you want. No,
yeah.
there's no shackles that are keeping you to anything, not at least not physically anyway. But
Yep.
back to what we were saying about the stand-up comedy. So you'd wished you had gotten started in it sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. Stand up. I'm a sales rep too. That's my kind of my day job. And they seem to be similar. I guess with anything, any skill, you get better with repetitions and time. And time is really a very critical element when it comes to stand-up comedy. You talk about time literally in terms of how much material you have. So how much time can you do is a common question. Do you have 5 minutes that can get people laughing every 5 to 15 seconds? So you try to build material, but to build material, you need to get good at being on stage and just having the skills of stand up. And that translates into like how many nights a week are you on stage, how many weeks a month are you on stage, and how many years have you spent doing it. And the comedians that have spent decades doing it, those are the guys that you see and know about. Those are the guys like Chappelle and Louis CK, Norm Macdonald, a lot of my favorites. And I wish I would have started when I was in my early 20s. If I could go back and just because then I would have 10 years under my belt instead of a year and a half. But I don't really regret it either because I went through things in my 20s that pushed me into it. So I still do have a lot of life experience to draw upon. And I feel like if I had started back then, I might have had better skills, but and I'd certainly be better at it, but I wouldn't have all the life experience that I have now too.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
seems to me that like the older we get, kind of the wiser, or even
hopefully, yeah,
more yeah, or even conversely more foolish, like we get, or to me, I mean, I may have been funny when I was in my 20s, but I don't think I would have had nearly as much hindsight as I would almost being 40 now,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, like, and there are those rare instances in which, like, you got your Eddie Murphys. Like, he was 23 when he did Delirious, and it's
Incredible,
hilarious.
incredible.
But that seems to be kind of, I mean, I can't really name too many people
Yeah,
in that whole like age bracket that were
that's the
that good
exception.
then.
Chappelle and Eddie Murphy, they were great at like 18 to 23, like, which is incredible. Like I feel like if you're going to be good at stand up in your 20s, you have to have so much self-awareness because as soon as you step on stage, most of the audience is going to be older than you. And the natural reaction is going to be like, who the hell is this kid? Why is he talking? Like, why do we care? Do we like
Right.
him? Like, is he trying to say he's smarter than everybody? I'm always impressed when there's young stand-ups that can, have because like I struggle with self-awareness too. Like you have to people are judging you instantly. So like people are gonna form opinions based on how you look and how your facial expressions, every little thing they'll be judging you on. So to be doing it at 20 and doing it well would be really hard no matter what.
Oh,
Like
no doubt.
so
Did you do anything like stage or like, drama or theater, anything like that growing up?
I only dabbled in it, and this is another kind of regret I have. I had this. You familiar with like High School Musical cliches, like, "Oh, I do sports, so I can't be associated with those theater
Right.
kids." And I always catered to those expectations more than I really should have in hindsight, because I liked theater. I was in a seventh grade production of Music Man way back. Um, I wish I would have just said screw it and just said I love sports and I love theater, and I don't care if I'm, maybe some people think that's dorky or I. So no, I did give a speech at my graduation that was really traumatic. I thought it went well, but I said like 70 times, and as soon as I got off, my buddies were like, dude, you said like 75 times, and it like traumatized me for years. So I never wanted to get back on stage after that.
That's a challenging one.
Yes.
I did.
100%.
I did a live stream the other night, and admittedly, when you're on stage, it's easier when you have an active audience, when you've got people that are kind of giving you their energy and you're feeding off that energy.
Absolutely.
There were only a few people in the chat, and I'm struggling just to come up with topics and things to say. And so I was like, and I went back and listened to it, and I was like, God, that was awful,
Yeah, that's like a conference call environment. It's like, I hate those. Like where like there's a leader and like everybody else, they might be agreeing with it, but you can't really feel their energy or like where it's at. And then it kind of is like, and then one person speaks up, but then
it's helpful when like there's things coming in the chat, but when there's nothing, I'm like, so I saw the new Dune this weekend.
Guess I'll just go off myself.
Tell a poem or something. I don't know.
People are just really afraid to speak up too. Sometimes it's
right. Do you do the do you ever do any of the like hosting the open mics at the radio room?
Yeah, Adam's asked me to host a few times. Hosting's different than performing a set. Really different. It probably feels like what you're describing, honestly, like leading a discussion on because the default energy of the room when you start as a host set is like nothing. It's actually probably less than nothing because it's like awkward. If there's mostly comics in the room, they're probably not paying attention. They're probably worried about their material. And like you just feel like you're just like, come on, get the energy up. And it's so hard. And you like it's hard to do well, like to kill in a host set. You almost don't even want to do that because then it takes away from the other acts. But yeah, hosting is a very humbling experience in stand-up, but it's fun. Like once you get used to it, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. See, to me it seems like there'd be a little bit less pressure, like because you're not forced to essentially compete with the other people that are going up there. You can just kind of be like, hey, you guys having a good time, fuck you.
In a sense,
whatever,
there's less pressure. You can go into more like, hey, were any couples in the crowd? How long y'all been together? Where do you work? What do you do? Like, but if you've never hosted before, it can be really hard. And like good hosts make it look so easy. So you could think, oh yeah, that's fine. What you kind of have to be like unflinching, and you have to be annoyingly energetic. You have to be like, what the hell did this guy drink before he got up here? Like, you have like 15 pots of coffee. Like, I always try to bring a lot of energy just because it helps. I'm just goofy anyway. But
I had a buddy. He was the host for the open mic at Flappers in Burbank, California, and it was much like you described. Like it was mostly just other comics or like the comics' girlfriends or friends or something like that. So they're really just kind of like and like it wasn't. I felt bad for him, but simultaneously, it's like if that had been the response when it was a bigger audience, then I would have probably did that, or I probably would have killed myself instead of doing that.
Yeah. I think with a big crowd, you can do material more. With the small audience, just bulldozing through material is basically suicide. You're basically guaranteed to bomb because they're like, what are you doing? Like, it's weird. Like, it seems contrived. So I don't know.
So what really kind of set you in motion as far as the stand-up career was concerned? I
worshipped like Seinfeld since I was a kid. So I knew what stand-up was through that. And then I always thought I was creative. But I was always kind of too much of a pussy to go all in on a creative endeavor. I was always like, yeah, I'll take that corporate job, which thank God I did. I have a great job and I have a great career now. but I was still had that itch not being scratched. And I was like, shit, man, I want to be happy. Like, but I don't know what to do. So it literally took the pandemic happening. During the first part of the pandemic, my company asked the marketing team, reached out to a couple of the sales reps, and they knew I was kind of a dork on social media. And they said, hey, nobody can work right now. Could you make like a funny video, work from home kind of thing to encourage the morale of the so I made a short video. It was like a minute and a half, and I wrote a script, and I was up till like 3 a.m. recording it on my iPhone and editing it. And then I sent it in, and the Salesforce really liked it, and I put it on Instagram. It was all right. I mean, it was kind of whatever, but I had
Had you ever done anything like that before, though?
I had done some videos in high school. I did a couple about the Italian restaurant we used to work at, and a couple projects, but they were kind of dramatic and kind of cringy in terms of like trying to be too I don't know,
Like
too
gunshot,
dramatic.
fade to black.
Yeah, too like
Stuff.
artsy vibe or something like, oh, I got
Sure.
something real important to say. But like doing something comedically was different. And I was like, holy crap, that was so fun. Like, what if I just tried to make stuff funny? And wouldn't that be cool? So that was the first step. I made like probably 6 videos during quarantine and put them on YouTube. And then I had a friend I met in Greenville, and I just moved to Greenville in January of 2020. And she introduced herself to me as a stand-up comedian. And that was the first time I'd met somebody at like a lower level of stand-up. And I was like, holy shit, you could just be a comedian? That's amazing. And it took me like months to even ask, like, do you think I could maybe try it? Like, and she says, yeah, sure. And she invited me to an open mic in July. I didn't have any material. And I just said yes to her text and then went to the comedy zone. And ever since that night, I haven't missed a week. Like I've been there multiple nights
Wow,
a week.
that's
So,
impressive.
yeah, well, I don't know. It's something. I mean,
I mean, but like to
it's
me, like the nature of repetition, like you said, a lot of those guys that have been in the game for a while, like your Chappelle's, your Bill Burr's, your Norm Macdonald's, they just kept doing it, and they
yeah.
just kept like the long game, just
Mhm.
just getting out there and doing it. That
Yeah.
I come to find that with YouTubers too, like the guys that have persevered and have kept doing it have really created an audience,
Yeah.
and they have been able to maintain what they're doing because they just keep going. They just
And
keep
if they
going,
like the content they're creating, probably is important too. Like they
Yeah.
enjoy whether 10 people or 100,000 are watching, they would do it anyway.
And see, I tend to enjoy this aspect of it more. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love like making little skits and little videos and stuff like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
fun to me. But actually having a discussion and human interaction to me
Yeah.
is vastly more important, especially when it comes to the exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
It's just, and I did a few podcasts in the past where it was like host, co-host, and we would talk about films. We had one where we would talk about just whatever, about
How
like
did
the
you enjoy doing
LA
that?
life. The films?
Yeah.
I mean, I liked that because it was, like I said, I love like organic interaction, and
Mm-hmm.
I I would much rather do what I'm doing with like a crew of people, like a Steven Crowder or like
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you know who Bridgette Flanders is.
What's that?
Do you know who Bridgette Flanders is?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, she's hilarious. She's a LA based comedian, but she does a lot of like political stuff, and
Okay.
she's I would say she's probably one of the funniest women out there now,
Yeah.
like if not the funniest. Yeah, I think so,
Nice.
because she's very like insightful, but at the same time like and it's her and 2 other women, and they host it, and they're just funny. They're always laughing, and it always makes me feel good in the morning. Her podcast is called Dumpster Fire.
Dumpster fire. Perfect. I
Yeah.
like the
So
name.
yeah. It again, that like self-deprecation, I absolutely kind of love and respect that about comedians. But like what inspires you? Like what kind of keeps you moving?
Oh, the I think knowing like how I'm wired now, and like what I need to be doing, which took a long time. Sorry, which took a long. I should silence that.
No, now you got to answer it.
No,
Answer. Hey, I'm recording a podcast.
it's my dumbass friend. I don't need to talk to him. I, no, I think, like I said, it took me a long time to figure out like what the answer was, like, because I was, when you go through your 20s, you're trying to figure life out. So, I was like basically 110% on career, not thinking about the hours outside of that. And then once you start to knock off some of those markers in your life of like, okay, I've got some success in this area. My personal life and my romantic life are still a mess. I don't know what hobbies I really love and I'm passionate about. So kind of discovering those things. And the big revelation was like writing and creativity. Cause that's like again, Jordan Peterson kind of talks about it, but if you're a creative person, there's going to be ideas that flow out of you like all the time. You won't really be able to control it. So like having a vehicle for those to come out, like those ideas keep me going. And it's like, I thought of that. I want to try that on stage. I want to see if other people see it the same way I do. And most, like a lot of times they don't, and and I feel like a piece of shit and I bomb, but sometimes they'll relate and sometimes it'll work.
Do you ever bring like your ideological frame or your politics to the stage ever?
A little bit, a little bit. I don't, I'm working on a joke right now about rich people, and how I feel bad for rich people in the early 1900s. This is kind of about how fast innovation has. I was an economics major, so part of my ideological framework. But like if you were like a Rockefeller in the early 1900s, you had $1 billion, but the coolest thing you could buy at the time was like a washing machine. Compare that to like a Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
So
Go up
like
to
it would
space in
suck.
his penis rocket.
Exactly. It's kind of off of that. And then, going back to like what would it be like to be rich in the Middle Ages? It'd be the King of England, which would be cool, but you still pooping in a hole. You still have, Black Plague ravaging your kingdom. It could be
Right.
better
I
off.
think it was easier to get rich back then.
It could have been. What's
You
your
know, I
theory
mean,
on that?
because you take like your Rockefellers and your Morgans and your Rothschilds and all of them, and like,
Yeah,
you know, there weren't all these huge titans of industry back in the day. And so I think it would have been easier to kind of corner the market on new ideas and new innovations, So
sure.
I think that's harder to do now. I mean, yeah, it happens, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk and stuff, but like to me, like, oh, if you found like oil, like people were finding oil back then,
Yeah,
and that doesn't like happen anymore, So
right. It is kind
it's
of
just,
interesting how it ends up being a few at the top, no matter
yeah.
what. I think it's that Pareto principle Jordan Peterson talks about. I'm sorry, I'm like a Jordan Peterson
What
robot.
is it?
The Pareto distribution.
I'm not familiar with that, but I do follow Jordan Peterson. I feel ashamed of myself.
Well, it's basically a statistical uh, law, I guess, but it says that the benefits accumulate at the top and at the bottom. They tend to skew. So the idea is like once you figure out a way, like once you've broken through, like Bezos with Amazon, like all of a sudden, you have all these other avenues to make more money, and then you kind of so things can kind of skew at the top and the bottom. But the great part about capitalism, so that would be a point to maybe a leftist ideology. But the great thing about capitalism is it raises all boats. So like everybody's better. And that would be like my point in the joke about rich people in the olden days is you're still better off living in a trailer park in West Virginia than you would be as the King of England, 500, 600 years ago. Just because of access to modern medicine.
Oh, I was gonna say, man, like Henry VIII had all his like concubines and
Well, yeah,
like.
but he probably had a bunch of STDs. Like, I don't think they
Oh,
had.
that's true.
Like, how does he know the concubines aren't sleeping around? He couldn't track them on a phone or anything.
That's true.
So they anyway, but yeah, the Pareto distribution. There still will be a few people at the top that are ultra wealthy, but still we get Amazon. So I mean, it kind of makes sense that they. And what can you really buy once you're that rich? I mean, you're on a dick rocket to go into space. Like, unless you're banging kids, then I'm fine.
I always think about that. I'm like, because I can kind of see both sides of the spectrum. And if Adam and I spoke about this to where if the work is incredibly exploitative, like it's funny that we're talking about Amazon because I just started doing a job for Flex, just to kind of pick up some extra money or whatever,
Sure.
Yeah, I don't do this full time, folks. I'm struggling. Um, but you know, I think about it like this. I'm like, okay, well, I'm being afforded a financial opportunity here. I'm being afforded the money or the time. I'm being afforded the ability to make money with my time, and somebody is going to pay me for that. And so
Yep.
like people seem to understand that life isn't fair. We're not all going to be on the same economic plateau.
Mhm.
And with all these CEOs and titans of industry, I'm like, it's almost like the whole like Reagan thing with like the trickle down economics. Like that's not a fallacious thing. Like
Mhm.
people at the top, they create jobs and they create corporations, and that's essentially what it is. It might not be hordes of money, but what you do with your money is all contingent upon you.
Right.
Like so I always hate the argument that like, oh, the 1%, they
The one
tax the
percent.
rich. Yeah, fuck off. My problem, I guess, kind of lies in when it goes with the whole, when it becomes like a plutocracy, when it's like people that have the most money are deciding policies and have so much influence over the government to where, I mean, it's essentially fascism, like the merging
Yeah.
of state and corporations. So that's really what I have a problem with. And
Yeah.
I don't know, is there any sort of way to make that more so that they don't have as much of an influence?
Yes. You elect Donald Trump,
but
and that's
he's
what.
but he's a businessman, David. He's part of the one
Oh,
percent.
please. That was the biggest reason I was a fan. He was the wrecking ball at the that we needed to throw at the cronyist economic system that you were describing, and that's why I was so excited about his candidacy, his presidency, and that was why there was such a fearful reaction to everything. It had nothing to do with racism, I don't think. It had nothing to do with it had everything to do with the status quo being disrupted and unraveled in any sort of way. And that was
Right.
why the fear existed. And I think his voters kind of sensed how special the movement was, that it was a reaction to the crony capitalist, all the negative parts of those institutions. So yeah, I think it's tough though. Those entrenched interests are very strong.
Yeah, I mean
So
that and I'll agree with you on Trump too. Like I definitely in 2016 I was just kind of like, okay, like I was very apolitical about everything, and
uh-huh.
being in Hollywood, that's a safer bet than having any sort of right leaning votes, right? But I was just kind of like, whatever. It's all spectacle to me at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
then I really started seeing like the negative repercussions of poor policy decisions, and all the, because living in California, they might as well be their own sovereign nation at this point.
Yeah.
And I started to really see kind of the influence of you know poor administration, and when COVID hit and all the rioting started because of all the police brutality or whatever. I was like, fuck this, and then like I saw Johnny Rotten like saying I'm voting for Trump, and I'm like, I'm on board with you, man. Like, and I finally like outed myself as a Trump supporter, and I had so many people that were just like giving me flack, and
Yeah.
but I agree with you, and I think that people are like, he's kind of brazen, he's kind of
Yeah.
but I'm like, that's honestly what we needed to shake the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
because these motherfuckers like heads started spinning when he was
Yeah.
saying some of the, they were like, whoa, God, this isn't the actions of
I
a
yeah,
commander in chief.
I don't blame the people that hate him either, because I kind of feel like it takes you kind of have to have like a little bit of a trained eye, which I had the benefit of having. I think like if you look closely at these institutions, like they've been lying to us for decades. So like, if you think that way, I mean, and it's hard, like, because the media is telling you every day he's the devil. So I get why you take some of that at face value, because
Well, you
they ganged up on him big time for
and
sure.
you being an economics major, I mean, to me, I can't relay this to my friends enough because they're so hung up on this whole boogeyman of like racism and
Yeah.
economic disparity that they can't really see how the way the world actually works. Like
Mm-mm.
if you print more money, the value of the dollar decreases,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
don't get that.
They don't get that one. Oh
No,
dang,
I mean, like,
that one should be.
they're like, oh, well, let's go ahead and vote for this $1.2 trillion infrastructure package. I'm like,
Yeah, that
that's
was a
a
beauty.
terrible fucking idea. Like,
Yeah.
what they need to do. Well, actually, what do you think they need to do to get us back on top again?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think well, if you're an individual, I think the only thing you should do right now is own something. Own real estate, own stocks, own Bitcoin maybe, because whatever's denominated in dollars will go up. So I feel awful for anybody who is on the poorer end of things, because if you don't own assets, you're pretty screwed right now, because your paychecks aren't going to go up that much. Your relative net worth is just going to be down there. You're probably going to have debt, and that could create a really bad situation for a lot of people. So ironically, these policies that Biden and the left and the right, I mean, the Republicans are big spenders too. Like, this is going to decimate people, and like the rich are going to get richer because of this. 100%. Like,
Oh
rich
yeah,
people, if you own houses, if you own anything, all of a sudden, it's going to be denominated in dollars. Your stuff's going to be more expensive for you too, but you're going to be richer when the dust all settles. So I don't know. It's a
it
complicated problem stopping it, because the
it would
Fed.
have it would have been a different story, at least with the whole pandemic situation, if small businesses had been allowed to operate without
Agree.
any sort of restrictions. To me, that was one of the biggest like scams to have ever. I think it's probably the biggest scam that we've ever experienced in our lifetime. Basically shut down everybody else, but then the bigger corporations can operate without restrictions. And so what's
Sure.
that going to do? Like all the smaller corporations shut down
Yeah.
and there's no competition, you
Yep,
know?
that's exactly right. And that's how big corporations tend to operate. Now, I'm not an expert on policy, but this is like a general idea. But for example, safety regulations, a big corporation could lobby the government to say, hey, to get any product approved to market for safety, you have to pass all of these checkpoints, which is incredibly costly and takes years to do. But because they set up those safety regulations, mom and pops can't bring products to market. So you have no competition. You have the corporations carving out their own monopoly in the name of safety regulations. And now things are more expensive and there's less competition. If you didn't have any safety regulations, or you allowed all small businesses to stay open during the pandemic, to your example, we'd have lower prices, more competition, and a better result. But yeah, those gray areas of policy and how big corporations lobby the government, that's not actually capitalism. Democrats will say that's capitalism. No, it's
Right.
not.
No.
And a
I
lot of
mean,
times
it's
yeah,
essentially fascism,
yeah,
the merging of state and corporation, you
sure,
know? And I,
yeah,
and to me, myself, I haven't, like you said, like Donald Trump, I think that's a good start. How to keep big money out of politics, how do you do it?
yeah. I don't know. I really
I
don't
don't
know
know
the answer
either.
to that, because that wasn't something I think the forefathers anticipated. And it would involve a lot of people voting against their own self-interest,
Right.
because you can't assume away the status quo. There's people getting paid by all these corporations that gave them their jobs they have right now. So like, if I'm Joe Congressman and Pfizer just elected me, I can't go to them and say, well, we got this new bill that limits your ability to elect me. I don't see that happening. That's
No.
why I like Donald Trump, because it's a guy who doesn't give a fuck about anything.
Well, he has
But
nothing to really gain from it,
Yeah, his gain is being a legend, which means he's going to do the right things for his own ego. So that was a cool little incentive he had, I thought. I mean,
Right.
he was all about legacy and being larger than life as a celebrity.
I think and I've kind of tossed this idea around a little bit. The whole idea of term limitations, because the only way that you have longevity in political office is by taking donations from corporate interests, and
Yeah,
so if there were some sort of statute that said that you can only, with like the presidency, you only serve 2 terms, like with congressional term limitations. If there were such a thing, then I think that it would be, I don't know, it would be impossible, but I think it would be harder for corporate interests to be able to control any one person. But then again, it goes back to what you say. It's like it's voting against your own self-interest. Like, why
yeah,
would I want to be able to keep myself out of office? Like, why would I want to potentially uh jeopardize a career that I could have in politics?
yeah. And I don't even know. I think term limits is a good idea. I don't know what would happen though. Do you think like maybe the corporations would just up the paychecks they're giving them for that short window
Could
and just
be.
and or just get a revolving like stable of candidates that they're just running that are actually
See, they're all lawyers,
yeah,
they know how to circumvent and skate around every sort of legal stipulation or anything like
yeah.
that. So
I
it's
I was just gonna say I think one of the things that could outwit the government is the private sector and the speed of innovation because I think because that's what happened with the taxi cab monopoly. If you remember, before Ubers existed.
Was
Um,
that in New York?
yeah, or any big city. But if you
Mhm.
remember back before Uber, taxis used to cost an exorbitant amount of money. And there were laws in place that protected the taxi cab. So that's like a micro example of just shitty policy because, yeah, you couldn't get a taxi. And then before the lawmakers could change it to get Uber out of there, Uber innovated so fast and was so convenient and so universally well loved. They broke up the taxi cab monopoly like overnight. And they complained a lot, but they weren't fast enough to be able to change the law. So
Right.
basically, Uber democratized, peer-to-peer transportation and cut the cost dramatically and improved the livelihoods of so many people. And the government couldn't do anything to stop it. So,
And I think that's great. I think that like you said, innovation can kind of usurp or dare I say trump all of that.
yeah,
And provided that innovation is allowed to flourish. Now
yeah,
going back to what you were saying about like owning property and
yeah.
whatnot. Do you know about Blackstone and BlackRock and Vanguard?
I know Vanguard.
So they are all corporate organizations that are going and buying up huge swaths of real estate in order to essentially, you'll never have the chance to own it. You will only rent. And their whole motto is you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Holy shit.
Right?
I don't like the sound of that.
I don't either. Because that was always a status of, or that was always a symbol of status and wealth, was back in feudal times, having however many lots of land or whatever. that
Yeah.
that was that to me, that was always an indicator of wealth and upward mobility. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever kings would marry off their daughters and sons to each other, it was like, all right, how much land are we getting out of this?
Yep.
What do we stand to gain from this? And
Sure.
so their whole idea is to have government subsidized corporate entities that will essentially own everything, and a private citizen can never. I mean, if I understand their goals correctly, will never be able to own any of that. You just rent. You just keep renting and renting and renting.
Yep. Well, yeah, that sounds like a. I mean, if you go full conspiracy on it, if what they're doing with the dollar, if it's intentional, like they're just trying to crash the dollar and make everything appreciate in value to where it's impossible for the average person to own anything, then
Yeah.
you basically have, millions of
All
just
these
dependent
mega
citizens.
corporations that can come in and buy things for pennies on the dollar and then do what they will with them. They
Right.
buy them. They buy them for super cheap, and then
Hmm.
they either hike the price up significantly or keep it at a point to where it's like, okay, well, somebody can afford this. They do this in LA all the time. Like they'll buy all these like, huge
Like apartment complexes.
yeah, apartment complexes, and but they make it so that you have to be super wealthy to be able to live in one. And so
Yeah.
essentially it's almost like gentrification in that like it pushes
Sure.
all the people that have been in Hollywood for a while, that have essentially been grandfathered into lower rental costs and whatnot. It pushes them all out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a scary time to be uneducated and unaware, and it's easy to be that way because there's so much noise every day distracting you from like, um so yeah, that's the other thing. Like, that I see those apartment complexes a lot. Like I lived in Charlotte for a little while.
Oh,
Are you
really?
are you up in Charlotte?
I'm near Charlotte. Yeah.
Near Charlotte?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you'd get these
Where did you live
big.
in Charlotte?
I lived in Uptown in Fourth Ward, kind of by the.
Damn, baller.
I mean, no, this is stupid. This is I wasn't. I was, poor, but
Oh, were you? Uptown's usually pretty nice, right?
well, I mean, I was living beyond what I should be paying for rent. Like I was living
Gotcha.
stupidly. Like, and this is where like if I could go back in time, and I tell my little brothers this because my little brother just graduated college. Any kid who's graduating college, whether you have debt or not, your goal should not be to live in one of these apartment complexes with a fancy brochure and like a nice pool and a gym and stuff, and you're paying like 1,500 to 2 grand a month, barely saving anything. You should be with roommates. You should be saving money. You should be investing in the stock market, saving up for your first down payment on a home. Because I don't know, you get in Atlanta too. There was this saying, it was the $40,000 millionaire. These young college kids would come and they'd have mommy and daddy's credit card and they'd be
Oh, yeah.
living it up, paying way too much for rent, not owning anything, and they're poor, but they're just servants to these corporations that buy up the apartment complexes.
And they're charlatans, like they come off, and this is an LA phenomenon too, where it's like, they think they're like kings and queens of the town, but it's
Oh yeah,
like,
but they got it.
take away mom and dad's dime and they ain't shit.
Yeah, or they
So
got a shit ton of debt, or but living below your means and saving money, investing. It doesn't take a rocket scientist either. Like I think financial advisors are a pretty big ripoff too. You can invest in pretty safe general index funds that like are, if they tank, the whole world is screwed. So like, you know, there's a lot of
what you were
so I mean
saying
these
though,
corporations are doing this stuff, but you can fight back if you just arm yourself with basic information. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, like, you know,
what you were saying though about like living in one of those fancy exorbitant apartments though, I
yeah.
mean, like it's certainly easier to get laid.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm sure that's probably a
It,
big mo of most of the folks that live in those
it's
hoity-toity
nice,
places.
but if you're a smart girl, she might be like, wait, you don't own this thing. How much are you saving a month? You're poor as shit.
Right. That's
You're not gonna be able to take me on these steak dinners very much longer unless you wisen up.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned too is like, don't ever do the fancy dinners. Not for the first date. Not for the first date. Like I love coffee dates. Like
Yeah.
coffee dates to me have been like life-saving. Like I
Yeah.
spend a little over $10 at Starbucks, and then it's like if I don't
There
like
you
your
go.
ass, like or she doesn't like me or thinks I'm fucking poor or something, which I've had happen rather recently. Like that's huge. That is
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
People don't understand like how huge that is for relationships, and like people are, I used to think that like a woman would be incredibly superficial for just wanting money and things, but it's like and Jordan Peterson, he'll talk about this too, where it's like a
Yeah.
woman biologically wants to feel like protected and secure, and
Uh-huh.
when you have resources and you have things at your disposal that are going to ensure that within them, then you become automatically more attractive.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I think it's only one part of it, like having money or whatever. I like Jordan Peterson talks about there's all these different dominance hierarchies with humans. So with animals, it's pretty simple. Like the strong ones, the dominant ones are pretty obvious. They get the sexual, so they get all the sexual options. They get with human beings, there's all these different competencies that you can have. Money's just one, but there's plenty of guys with money that are clueless with women and just yeah, just horribly insecure about other things. Don't have a clue. So
God, if I had money and I was clueless with women, I'd go move to fucking Vegas though. Like I go move to Nevada and I'd hit the
would
bunny
you?
ranch every fucking weekend. And I might just do that anyway, you know? Like
Yeah.
I was hardly thinking about like moving to Nevada and just like, getting a decent amount saved up and then just saying like, fuck it, I'm gonna go
Just
visit the bunny ranch, you know? Who cares?
yeah, just pay for your girls. Yeah, that
You're
works.
paying you're paying for it anyway, you know?
That's what.
Like
Yeah.
the way I see it, like a wife is nothing more than a glorified prostitute, you know? Like think about it. Like some of these guys, if they didn't have the money, if they didn't have, the status, if they didn't have things to give these women, then these women wouldn't be with them. They're no worse than a
Yeah.
fucking hoe, you know?
I think they want to feel safe and secure. If you
Sure.
have enough for that, then you kind of, I don't know, and you're not depressed and you could just fake being happy a lot. I think you could make it work. I don't know. I'm not married yet, so
What's the dating scene like in Greenville?
it's good, man. I do stand up so many nights of the week. I don't go on a ton of dates right now, which is a little frustrating, but there's a lot of, nice southern girls here. Um very some a little bit like overly traditional, maybe. Like they're wanting to get married and they're wanting to like just have it all figured out. And I don't think in those terms all the time. So and
Sure.
I'm not in a hurry.
Right.
So there's that, but there's plenty of beautiful girls here. And yeah, I've had a few on and off in the last year, but nothing to write home to mom about yet.
Right.
Um, but I'm excited, man. I'm excited to meet a girl uh that kind of we line up maybe creatively, or I feel like I'm in a better place to meet somebody right now than I was before. So I don't
That's
know.
also something I feel like that comes with age, you know? if
Hmm.
if they don't feel like you're a totally useless human being, like I said, I'm almost 40, and it's I've done a lot of cool shit and I've been a lot of cool places and whatnot, but I don't have the material things to necessarily show for that, you know.
Oh, who gives a shit?
Well, you say that, but like, it's again, it harkens back to that whole like, security thing. Like your your value increases exponentially, like when you own a home, or
It
when
does, yeah.
you have a decent paying job, or like, and I saw like the worst aspects of it in LA. Like it was always like status chasers and things like that. Here I am. I'm like, I have an apartment that I pay my bills on. I have my own car. Like I'm a responsible human being. What the fuck is wrong with me? But simultaneously, like you're competing with actors, athletes, investment bankers, entertainers, everybody like that. So you might be king shit in your own world, but like, there's going to be like 90% of the guys that, well, no, I don't want to say 90%, but there's going to be a huge percentage of guys that are out there that are just like killing it, and it's going to make it harder for like just average dudes, you know?
Sure, it can, but even Harvey Weinstein had to like seduce women for acting roles to get him to sleep with it. He had more money than God, so
Yeah.
there's plenty of guys that I don't know, and get out
I
of
mean,
here with that.
I did
Get out of
all
here with
right.
that 40 shit.
I
40's not old,
I did all right
especially in
out there.
2021, dude. 40's never been younger. I mean,
That's probably true. And I beat myself up a lot about, getting older sometimes, but then I'm like, you know, I think about the things that I've done, and I'm like, fucking Ridley Scott directed his first movie at 40.
yeah.
So I'm doing okay,
I mean, keep an eye on it, but I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always, we could live our lives in regret, like I
Hmm.
don't, I tend to believe that, let's, try to make the best out of any situation, like I'm pretty blessed, so
Hmm.
I don't really, I don't really have, I don't really have a lot of like high demands, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I just, I'm a pretty simple person, I think, so.
What is your biggest regret? I got mine.
Whoa, you might have to save that for your show.
Okay.
Well, no, I'll go ahead and answer. My
Yeah.
biggest regret, and I might have a different one when I come and do your show, but my biggest regret, I don't really think I have too many regrets. I will say that like my brain, I'm kind of like if I don't see almost like immediate results or like immediate like prosperity or something like that, like I'm kind of just fuck it, like
Yeah.
I'm done with it. And so back to what we were saying about the whole longevity thing, like I almost wish that I had done a little bit more time in each endeavor that I pursued,
Okay.
I don't
Stuck it out a little
necessarily,
longer.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily regret it because I feel like the fact that I have done so many different things has kind of added to the tapestry of whom I am as a human being,
Hmm.
Um, so I think that that's cool, but like I don't want to just keep giving up on something because it doesn't manifest in success like right away, if that makes
Sure.
any sense, I mean,
Hmm.
I did the whole LA thing for 5 years, and I'm not completely ruling that out, though I don't think that I'm going to be going back anytime soon. But,
And what were you
simultaneously,
doing in LA? We talked about this previously for a little
I was
while.
just doing the acting and I was writing for a little while. I was studying at the Stella Adler Conservatory there.
That's pretty,
Um,
dude. That's awesome. You went for that, honestly.
and I will say that I don't regret trying, like I do, and if we don't give it a go, who's to, there's never, we'll never know. There's a relationship coach that I listen to that says, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Hmm.
Or didn't Michael Jordan say that? Maybe,
Yeah. Or Michael
probably.
Scott.
Michael
He,
Scott.
it was,
and
he claimed
and
credit.
like the Southeast now has gotten to be such a like a burgeoning, flourishing place for entertainment and what have you. So, and given like the way that technology has advanced so much, like I like doing this. I
Hmm.
don't. I mean, I don't. I mean, I love all aspects of the creative route, and but
Hmm.
like with YouTube and podcasting, you could do that wherever. And it
Sure.
got to the point where I was in LA where I was like, I'm just doing this right now. Like in order to audition out there, you had to do like 3 COVID tests a day. And if you're
Oh
like a
wow.
not, yeah, if you're like a non-union actor, which I'm union eligible, but I didn't want to buy into it because then it kind of limits your options of what you can be involved in, but you had to take 3 COVID tests a day for like $100 for like maybe 16, 18 hours of work. I was like,
Hmm. Yeah.
fuck
Yeah.
that, So I was just like, why don't I just, uproot and go somewhere where it's, exponentially cheaper, So,
Sure.
but I
Yeah.
mean, regrets, no, I don't think I have that many,
Yeah.
So,
Good deal.
yeah, man. How did you get turned on to Jordan Peterson?
Oh gosh, being effing miserable. I think that's how a lot of people find his stuff probably. I think it was around the time I hit my first sales quota, which I'd built up in my head as the greatest accomplishment I could ever have. It took me a really long time to get a job in sales for my company, and then by the time I got it, um, I was like 25, and then it was the hardest thing ever to hit my quota, which for people who aren't in sales is it's the all the dollars you sell in the year accumulated has to meet a certain level by December 31st at midnight. And that's pretty hardcore at our company that it has to hit that. And I hit it by the skin of my teeth, just barely. And I had a lot of, ups and downs. And then it came to January and we had our sales meeting. There's a lot of accolades. And after it was all over, and I had nobody pat me on the back anymore. And it was like, I looked back at the last 5 years of my life. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what was that all for? Like, I got super depressed. I was like, what in the world is, I'm living in a basement in Atlanta. And I was like, dude, and I got real depressed. I was like, what's the point? That was so hard. And like, what am I going to do now? Hit another one, hit another quota, hit another quota. And I didn't have any idea of like purpose or meaning. And then Jordan Peterson speaks to a lot of that. I think especially young guys, like, where's the meaning in life? Where can you find it? And he talks a lot about responsibility, cleaning up your own room, making your bed.
Making your bed. Yeah.
Yep. A lot of low level practical steps. Like, you might be pretty useless, but could you make your bed? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can clean up my room. I can do this or that. And that helped me get a handle on how to keep myself balanced. Kind of. I still drank a lot of alcohol, especially on the weekends. And I didn't elevate to anything other than that until I realized I had creative wiring too. Because if you get far enough into Jordan Peterson's content, he talks about creativity a lot, and I'm sure that's how you're wired as well. And if you have creativity, that's another problem you have to solve, because the most creative, or like, if you're creative, you could have all your other pillars set up, but you'll still be miserable and you won't know why. You could have a good job, you could have good friends, kind of, but if you're not engaging in your creative side, you'll still be miserable and you'd be like, what the hell? And I kind of felt like that too. So, but yeah, Jordan Peterson, man, I highly recommend him for anybody who hasn't kind of gone into his content.
His 12 Rules for Life. I haven't read that one. You recommend that one?
Yeah, I haven't read it either, but I think it's based off of a lecture series called Maps of Meaning. I don't know. Have you listened to his lectures on that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, Maps of Meaning. I think if you listen to those, that's like a way more in-depth look at what's in 12 Rules for Life. But
it's funny because like a lot of these people will sell their books and they'll be like, yeah, buy my book or whatever. And I get their books and then I read the books and it's like, this is all just the stuff that you've been saying on YouTube.
Yeah. So it's all available for free. If you don't want to buy 12 Rules for Life and you have 24 hours to donate of your time to listen to his lectures, I think there's 12 lectures, in fact, and they're each like 2.5 hours long. So
have you read Think and Grow Rich?
Think and Grow Rich? No.
Napoleon Hill?
I have How the West Grew Rich. But no,
it's really good. I swear by that book. I recommend that to everybody, and especially like somebody that's trying to achieve like some sort of stability and like prosperity in their life. Like no joke, read the book, started doing the exercises, qualified for Screen Actors Guild, was out in LA within a month.
Holy shit.
And it's all like positive affirmations. Like, what's the other one? The Secret,
I'm writing this down.
Okay.
Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's been around forever. There's like multiple printings and editions of it. Yeah. But yeah, really fantastic read. I love that a lot. What are you reading? What are you watching? What sort of content are you consuming?
The Tao of Comedy.
The Tao of Comedy.
By Bobby Oliver.
Oh wow.
That's all about stand-up. So that's a little bit, I mean, I kind of have a lot of stand-up material that I've been going through. I won't spend too much time on that because I don't know how many of your viewers like stand-up, but it's kind of about everything.
All 120 of them.
Dude, that's huge.
Oh yeah, it is.
Way more than I have.
Well, I mean, I beat myself up about these things and I realized like I've only been doing this a year, so
yeah. But
anyway, the Tao of Comedy. What else?
The Tao of Comedy. So yeah, that's for anybody who's like thought about starting stand-up or stand-up comedy books usually suck. This is more about like kind of the spiritual side of it, which kind of sounds weird, but there's something about being comfortable and being yourself in front of other people and that it gets into, because when laughs happen in a room, it's kind of this authentic moment between the audience member and the comedian. And it's like this, it's really hard to put your finger on. That's why books that tell you how to write a joke are not very helpful, but like, this is kind of like how you get yourself in a place where you're in tune with that. Norm Macdonald, based on a true story, a memoir. Norm passed away, but he's my favorite comedian, so that's another book I
Wow.
have.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so Norm is a brilliant thinker, I think. I mean, he wrote this novel. It's really entertaining. Part of it's a true story, part of it's like hammed up fake stories. It's hard to tell the difference. Well, that's a really good book. I have 1984 by George Orwell on my
Oof.
bedside stand. So
Good
reading
one.
that, but that's a little depressing.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Well, when I read that, though, I was like, and this is the cliche thing, like, oh my God, it's like what's going on right now, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Oh my God.
But it's not like
Where's
far
the
off
book?
though. That's I mean, like it's not a cliche thing to say that because like Orwell was almost like a prophet, you know, in that like
Yeah,
he saw all the stuff that was going on and he was like, this is it could be a reality soon, you know, and no,
totally.
I love all the dystopian stuff like Huxley and
Mm-hmm.
you ever
Brave
read
New
the Moon?
World.
Oh yeah, have you ever read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress?
The moon is a harsh what?
Mistress?
I'm not. I'm writing it down though.
Yeah, Robert Heinlein, really good. Um, Fahrenheit 451. I mean, all those like the pretty, well-known dystopian stuff. I love all that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
what? So you got your inspiration from like Norm Macdonald. Like who else do you like as far as comedians wise?
Oh man. Louis C.K.
Okay, Louis C.K. Comedians of past and upcoming ones.
Okay, yeah. So Louis has always been the GOAT to me. Because he's very versatile creatively. Uh, I don't know how long ago it was, but he decided he was going to put out a new hour of stand up every year. And that's a huge challenge to put in front of yourself. So he's just constantly pushing himself to new things. And he's also done a lot of other stuff, which I would like to do too. He's directed and edited his
Pootie
own.
Tang
Pootie Tang,
is
dude.
fucking hilarious.
Pootie Tang is unreal. Not a lot of people know about it.
Oh, it's so good.
And he did his own show on FX. He did this show called Horace and Pete, which not a lot of people know about, only on his website available, which was like a drama filmed like a sitcom. But he's done so much crazy shit. So Louis C.K., dude, I love him. And yeah, continues to do like anything he does, I will be all in on. And then in terms of new upcoming comics, Shane Gillian Keeves. Have you seen his stuff yet?
No, are these
Dude.
Greenville comics or are these like
No, well, they're big. They're like a few 100,000 followers. Like they're like next class up.
okay?
Like they're So
I really like Steve Hofstetter.
Steve Hofstetter.
Yeah. Oh, you've never seen him?
I haven't seen his stuff. I know him. I
Oh,
know the name.
I feel like he should be bigger than he is, but he's
I'm
hilarious.
looking at
Like,
him right now.
yeah, he's got
Ginger,
Ginger Jew,
Ginger Joe, dude.
and he's got like the
He looks
the
funny.
part of me feels like I'm like, man, he is really that good with hecklers. Like, yeah. His whole shtick is kind of like coming back at hecklers and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah,
is this set up? Like, this just seems like way too like. But he's so quick and he is so witty, you know. And I'm like,
yeah. I don't
this
think
guy.
it is set up. I know comics here in Greenville that are just so good with crowd work and
It's
hecklers and
almost like a
off the cuff.
different like you're exercising a different like comedy muscle, you know, because you're
Yeah,
like boom, right on your
I
feet,
suck
right
at
on your
all that.
feet.
I suck at all that on the off the top kind of stuff.
How
I mean,
have
every
you?
once in a while, I'll accidentally do something that works, but otherwise, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stick to my material because this is gonna be dog
Has
shit.
anybody ever heckled you?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Well, it's happened more than once.
Ooh.
One time I was in Atlanta at an all black comedy club, and um, which I love all black rooms by the way because it's like a different energy and stuff. But I kind of did this joke about Instagram girls. I don't know if you follow Instagram girls, but they kind of always have their ass out and they kind of
Oh
like
my
are
God,
looking
Jenny
back at
Babas, man.
what's that?
You gotta look up Jenny Babas.
Jenny Babas.
Yeah, she does those Blue Chew commercials, you know,
Oh
where it's
gosh,
like
I'm sure she's hot.
I was like, I would not need Blue Chew if I was with you, girl. And then somebody put a comment after I said that. They're like, yeah, you'd probably need a shot of penicillin. I'm like, ooh, that was good. I was like, too bad I'm
Heyo.
allergic to it. I was like,
Yeah,
I'll take the hit, you know.
that's a good heckle right there.
Well, I mean, I was like that. I was like, I'll give that to you. That's pretty good, you know. But
Yeah.
Instagram
Well,
girls.
Instagram girl. Yeah. So I did this act out where I kind of bent over acting like I was one. And then I got a wedgie in my mesh gym shorts and I like picked it out without thinking. I like reached back and then it was less specific heckles, but it was like groans and boos. Like, did that white boy just pick his ass off stage? And then the boos just rained in. And I like, fuck.
Oh no.
And then I left the stage early. I got booed off. So that was brutal. And then another time I had a joke that didn't work. And then an audience member said something. And then I was like, oh yeah, everybody's a comedian. And then the guy came back at me and said, not everybody. And
Ooh.
And I was like,
That's pretty
motherfucker,
good.
I will cut you. Like, there's a point where like you want to just say what you really want to say, which is like, dude, I'll murder your entire family. I don't give a shit. Like,
Michael Richards up in that motherfucker.
you get up here. Oh yeah, yeah. You don't want to have that happen.
No,
dude. One time, a comedian didn't know how to respond to a heckler, and I didn't say those things, thankfully. But a heckler got like in this dude's face, and he basically said he banged the dude's wife and called him a cock or something. And the DJ had to be like, "Oh, on to our next comedian." Like,
wow.
Oh, it was funny.
But wait, he was just joking, or he really did?
Oh no, he went hard. He went in. He was like, "Yeah,
wow.
Dude, it was great."
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'd go like Bill Burr if I ever had that happen. You know, to where I'd just be like, you know, that Philadelphia like thing is legendary.
Yeah.
You know, where he's just like letting him have it for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Sure.
But yeah, I you know, to kind of talk about the whole like, you know, being in the like black comedy clubs or whatever, I would be terrified to go to some place like the Apollo, you know, to where it's just like that's like a make or break situation, you know, like they are an incredibly unrelenting crowd, and if you do well there,
they're,
you know,
they're great though. I love them. I mean, that story is pretty early. I was like a month into stand up. I didn't know, but like they appreciate high energy. They don't like pandering. They like just, you know, get to the funny jokes. They like vulgar stuff. They like sexual stuff. They like vulgar. That tends to play well. And, you know, I mean, and they're, you know, they're just people. So they don't tolerate corny shit that's not funny. So like in a black room, like get to the funny stuff, or they will not have patience for that. Right. So, and I appreciate that because it helps weed out the stupid stuff in my act.
It keeps you on top of your game, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, you got to be high energy. You got to like yell.
It's funny. I know you know Craig Longino, right?
Yeah.
So we went to Adam and Chaz Scoville and we all like went up and down the Southeast and did the emotional reassurance tour. And we ended up
he yells.
He does yell, but we ended up going to this one club where it was like, you know, they were all like hoity-toity, like rich petitzers. It was almost like a yacht club or something, you know? And Adam gets up there and Adam's kind of dry and they were kind of like whatever, you know? And then Chaz got up there and I don't think they were really feeling Chaz. And I had just like, they were like, do some stuff, you know, get up there and just go.
Yeah.
I did not do it though. I was way too intimidated. I was like, nah. I was like, not for this room. Nah, fuck it. You know. But then Craig went up there and just fucking crushed it. Like he had these stuffy shirt, like fucking Dockers wearing motherfuckers, just like in stitches. And I was like, that's awesome. You know,
dude, that's the weird part about stand up too, man. Like it can be a dead room and somebody can go on and crack them and murder. You can go on after somebody that kills and just suck. Yeah. Like there's no guarantees ever. Like it's the biggest mind fuck ever. Like, and that's part of why it's addicting is like you're rolling the dice every time.
What's your best experience in stand up? When were you like just crushing it? Yeah.
Oh, I had a really good set last Thursday that I was happy with. I don't know. I mean, anytime a joke works, anytime you feel like, I guess probably Laughing Skull in Atlanta is probably the most fun I've ever had on stage. Because if you've ever been to Laughing Skull and anybody's heard, it's right downtown Atlanta. It's a small room kind of, but they put like 70 people in it. And you feel like a big time comedian because like they have resident comics that are there every night. It's packed. So like, the crowd is there for comedy. They're usually pretty warmed up by the time you go out on stage. And then to go out there for the first time and have jokes that I worked on in Greenville work in front of like that crowd, and you hear the laughs, like it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's hard to
Yeah,
describe the feeling, but
I love how like tight knit the comedy community is, and
oh yeah,
they always seem to be really like supportive of each other, And I just found out this like, a few years ago, this interesting phenomena that a lot of people that are in porn will end up doing like stand-up comedy. And that
really
there's like there's like an overlap between the porn and the comedy community because it's like,
interesting.
you think about it, like you have to be vulnerable in
Yep.
both avenues of performance art. You have to be really vulnerable, one more so than probably the other,
Yeah.
but
And desperate.
right, so they, some of them end up uh doing both
Hmm.
outlets, like there's this porn chick, her name's Alexis Fox, and she's got
Hmm.
like a podcast called like High as Fox or something like that. And
Yeah.
there's all sorts of other ones that basically moonlight as stand-up artists. I found that to be fascinating,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Well, a lot of female comedians are kind of have a reputation for being dirty. They talk a lot about sex.
Oh,
So
that's one thing and
Amy
you and
Schumer,
I
my
had.
vagina.
Yeah, that's one thing you and I had kind of talked about. It's like I can really appreciate a female comedian that isn't talking about sex.
Yeah.
Like because it seems to be a very common theme with them. Like they
Hmm.
think that I don't know if they think maybe that like guys are gonna like think that that's hilarious or whatever, but like I don't. To me, it's almost too raunchy. Like
Hmm.
you want to hear something kind of because you can hear that from your guy friends. You can hear all
Yep.
that shit. So you want to hear something like different.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And there are a lot of great female comics. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they feel like there's
I don't want it to sound like I'm dragging on female comics because
no, I know,
there's
I know.
quite a few that I really like.
For sure. For
But there's
sure. I
like
don't
there's this whole slew of like Netflix like feminist comedians that
yeah.
just fucking grind my gears.
Yeah, well, it's weird. Some of the comics that talk about social issues. That's why I don't like to get political on stage because it's like as soon as you take a position, it ceases to be like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a TED talk then, and people might agree with you, and then you're like, yay! But it's not like they're not
Right.
talking about just weird random.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I think it's okay to have a position, but like, there's a time and a place for it. And
mhm.
if you could, to me, it seems like if you would be adept at like being able to poke fun at both sides of the aisle, like then
Yeah,
that's
like SNL
that.
used to be. Then it'd be great.
Yeah. Do they even have like a guy playing Biden right now?
I don't remember. They might, but
Does
they used to have Jim Carrey come in and do it, I think. But
Oh wow.
and
Does
he was
anybody even watch
hilarious.
SNL still?
What's that?
Does anybody watch
I
SNL still?
I don't. The one up and coming comic I mentioned, Shane Gillis,
Yeah.
was kicked off of SNL. He
Oh,
got
yeah, I
offered the
heard about
job for
him.
like 48 hours until they uncovered a podcast clip of him using a slur or something, and then he got fired. But he does his own sketch comedy on his YouTube channel, and it is the funniest. This is the funniest shit on YouTube right now, I think.
I'll have to check him out
Shane Gillis,
because
Gillian Keeves.
I've heard all about him. Have you seen anything lately, like as far as films? I love talking about films. You see
Oh
anything good lately?
no, but I well, Squid Game, which is not a film, but I was one of the billions of people that watched that
Oh,
crap.
everybody keeps telling me to watch it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah, you can skip it. I need to see the new Bond. I haven't seen that yet. I want to see the new movie with Matt Damon and um Ben Affleck and the Knights movie, Adam Driver.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
seen that one, but yeah, I'm pretty useless. I haven't seen these. I'm just not used to being in the theater and checking them out.
Sure.
Saw Space Jam 2.
I've never seen Space Jam 1.
Oh, you what?
I know. I know. I missed out on it. I do remember that whole era of 90s clothing where it would like
Mm-hmm.
do you remember when they would have like the Looney Tunes characters but they'd always try to make them like thugged out and stuff like that and they'd put them
Yeah,
on
yeah,
t-shirts?
yeah. The baggy jeans and
That
Tweety
was a
Bird.
thing. I remember that shit. That shit was funny.
Yeah.
But no, was it actually any good?
It's kind of trash. I
I
mean,
heard it was like super
actually,
woke.
I appreciated all the special effects. There was a ton that went into it, like special effect wise, and it was pretty visually impressive. But I like the original better overall. And
Maybe.
LeBron was a pretty terrible actor. They had to like really edit around that in the first part of the film. But
Ugh.
I mean, it was on
That
HBO, so I watched it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of LeBron James, and it's it's really hard for me to do like these sequels that come out like 20 years later. Like I tried to do
Mm-hmm.
Coming to America, like
Yeah, was it any
oh,
good?
no,
Oh gosh, I
no.
love the first one.
Yeah, well, just keep that nostalgia and just remain with it because like I got 20 minutes into it and I almost got to see it at a theater for free, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, I'm glad I didn't. Like
Yeah,
I shut it off after 20 minutes. I'm like, nope,
I
done.
gotcha.
But well, dude, thanks for stopping by, man. You want to
Yeah,
give a
bro.
shout out to anyone or your podcast or anything?
Uh, Shout out to Garrett Minton. He's got nothing worth following necessarily, but he's helped me with a lot of stand up and writing, and he's just a good buddy of mine. Yeah, I appreciate you having me, dude. Seriously, like, and I'll definitely want to have you on mine if you guys want to see any of what I have going on. David Baker 7 on Instagram is the best place to follow me. My YouTube channel is linked in there, and like John said, we have a podcast every week, every Monday. We interview a local stand-up comedian. Sometimes it's another guest, but usually it's a comedian. So we just talk comedy and really anything we have going on, and we get to know the guest really well. So if you've ever been curious about stand-up, or you like stand-up, or you thought about trying it yourself, it's kind of a hopefully good perspective. I don't know, like a lot of the big stand-up comics, you get their perspective, but this is kind of the local scene and how that all works. So yeah, and YouTube, I put stuff on there, short content. I have a TikTok that randomly has stuff on there, but yeah, that's kind of it. And yeah, if you ever are in South Carolina, come out to a show. Would we'll love to see whoever. And we appreciate local comedy, or the support of local comedy, big time.
Nice.
So
Cool. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, hopefully I'll go and get my feet wet down in Greenville. I'm working on my 3 minutes, man.
yeah,
I'm
dude,
I'm
get
trying to
on
hone my
stage. You're
skills. Yeah,
hilarious.
we'll see. But well, cool, man. Thanks for coming so much. Once again, David Baker, host of I Did This Instead of Killing Myself podcast on YouTube. And you can listen to his podcast on any sort of podcast outlet: Google, Apple, Stitcher,
Spotify,
Spotify,
everything.
whatever. Yeah, I'll post all the links down here in the description too. But thanks so much for coming, man.
Thanks a lot, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're the best, man. Namaste. God bless.
All
Be good.
right. Yep. See you, bud.